My name is John O'Malley. I'm a publican here in Rathdowney. I'm a third generation publican. We're in Rathdowney since 1911, and now my son has taken over from me. So we're the only fourth generation business in Rathdowney at the moment.
I'm Barbara Maher from Rathdowney. The square was always a great place to grow up. You had the people if you needed them. They weren't always in their place, but they were there if you wanted them. You could open the door and go into any house and be made welcome. That was the difference. You knew where everyone lived. You could open the door and go in and be made welcome. And there were great neighbours and great people.
When I was growing up as well, we used to congregate around the square. Everybody knew everybody else, and everybody looked out for everybody else. You could just go do your thing. There was nobody looking to see where you were or anything like that, or where's my little Jimmy or where's my little Tom. You just went out in the morning and you came back in the evening, or you came back when you were hungry, whichever, you know.
Then there were monthly fairs in Rathdowney, the fair day on the square in Rathdowney. And there was no school to keep you safe because the animals would be just roaming around. And there were stalls that men came from Dublin. Sean Barry was the man that had all the toys and household stuff and all. And the place would be packed with people like that. And then the day after, if you looked around in some parts where you could find coins, where the men that were selling the animals all had lost some coins, and we knew where to look, where to stick in under near the trees and things like that on the square.
Down by the river there at the back where Sherman's was, that was a marketplace as well during the fair days. And on that side, off the square, they used to sell pigs and sheep and things like that, whereas up in the square they used to sell the cattle. we were inundated with pubs, mostly because it was a brewery town, I'd say.
The brewery in Rathdowney had a Christmas party every year for the children, and it was held in a cinema in Rathdowney, and every child went, whether you were part of anybody working in the brewery or not. Anyone could go. Once you were a child, a visiting child, anyone you could go. And you would get a goodie bag going in, and there were streamers and sweets and every kind of things in it. Then when you went into the cinema, up at the front they had trestle tables set up with buns and cakes and crisps, and the brewery gave their own orange and all that. You get a bottle of orange with a straw in it and all this. And there was Santa Claus in it, and you got free gifts from the Santa. And then you had cartoons on the film, and then you had what we used to call a big film as well, which was often Meet Me in St. Louis or something like that. And when you were going home, you got another bag to take home if there was kids in the house that weren't old enough to go down.
When it was really buoyant, the brewery was an extraordinary place because there were so many different people down there. There was cask makers, there was all sorts of stuff, and then the farmers would be drawing in their barley, and you get the beautiful smell of fresh barley being brought in. But the buildings, which were magnificent buildings, were destroyed, and they were magnificent buildings, magnificent stone buildings.
It was one of the best places to grow up, I would think.
As I was growing up, we had a thing right in the middle of the square called the hut. And in that hut, that was actually like an old caravan that was just left on the middle of the square. And it was left there maybe for 30 or 40 years and never moved. But when people came to tar the square eventually, they tarred the wheels into the ground, so you just couldn't move it. But there was a harness maker in there called Dullard, and he was a man from Ballyedmond originally, I believe, and he that was his job there, which was a very important job at the time because every farmer used horses at that time.
There was a lot of places that they were so lovely. When we go up to Campins Moor, we used to have to go up by Newtown Perry, and there was a family of girls used to come on holiday there, and they'd be standing inside the gate when we'd be passing, and they'd say, hello, they were lovely girls and they were really quiet, And we'd say we're going up to the river, you coming, and they'd run in and get a towel and things, and they'd come too. And it was just a lovely place.
GA was a huge thing at that time, you know. And if you were going to a GA match, there was a guy in Rathdowney who used to organise buses. And he'd have maybe 3 or 4 buses on the square. And all the young lads would go to, Rathdowney were playing, say, in Mount Rath. All the young fellas would go down and you pay a man getting onto the bus, and his name was Tommy Barrett. And you pay him, and you go to Mount Rath on the bus then, and then you mightn't go to the match at all. You just go walking around Mount Rath or Abbey Leaks or wherever it was, you know. And that was your big day out, like, you know.
People kind of lived and let live, you know. And if they shared things too, you know. Somebody had something, they'd make sure somebody else had it too. You know, it was just a warm, different. I think people were kind of more thoughtful. There's a lot more money today, but it's different, you know.
People knew one another an awful lot better at that time and looked out for one another a lot better. But now, and I have to say, I think it's wonderful the way we've embraced people around town. I think it's fantastic. But you don't know people like you used to know people. And I don't know whether that sense of community will ever return. I don't know. Hopefully, if the children grow up, and maybe it might work like that, hopefully. But it's completely different now than what it used to be.
Well, no matter what changes, which it has changed a lot, and we lost a lot of good things that would have been of interest for people coming over and back from America and England and all, but it's still Rathdowney, and it still has something special. So.